Hey guys, TrepChains here with an update to my support Necromancer build for speed runs. This build is particularly made to provide support for Legacy of Nightmares Mage Necromancer speed runs. So in that 100 to 110, maybe up to 115 later in the season. Now there are a variety of versions of the support Necromancer out there. This is just my version, so take a look at others if you like. Importantly for me, this is something that I can run manually, but with a little bit of extra versatility compared to my previous version of this build. So the primary roles of this support Necromancer during these speed runs is to freeze all enemies, which is keeping Land of the Dead up as much as possible and generating health globes. This provides resource to the Mage Necromancers who are doing the damage. So to do this during the Rift, I'm holding down Devour. I'm hitting Land of the Dead whenever it's off cooldown. I'm spamming both Bone Spear and Command Skeletons to help increase my cooldown. These are essence spenders, so they work with Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. I'm using Blood Rush Potency as required to move around, and I'm not even hitting Corpse Lance Brittle Touch at all. This is activated automatically by my 2-piece Pestilence bonus combined with Land of the Dead and Devour. The other important roles I have in here is to be hitting the pylons. I am running Nemesis in this version of the build. Obviously keeping Land of the Dead up as much as possible. Where possible, when you're near elites, you want to be placing yourself in a more open area if possible, because that improves the globe spawning around you. And where possible, aiming your Bone Spear away from any electrified mobs to help keep your DPS Necromancers alive. Now I'm going to switch into game for a gear and build check. Okay, so now I'm in game with my Season 17 patch 2.6.5 support Necromancer. So I'm going to take a quick look at what I'm wearing. So I am wearing a 2-piece Pestilence set and 2-piece Captain Crimson's set version of the support Necromancer. As I've said, there's other versions of the support Necromancer out there. If you prefer to run them, go ahead. This is the version I prefer to be able to run manually, but with a little extra versatility than my previous build guide on this one. The most important spec for me is cooldown. So you can see here I'm running up at 68.8% cooldown. After cooldown, I'm prioritizing things like survivability and perhaps a little bit of attack speed. Okay, so starting with my 2-piece Pestilence set. So you can see here on my shoulders I have the cooldown Intelligence Vitality. Right now I have a wasted stat on there of resource cost, which I can still roll off to something like an armor roll or percent life for extra survivability. My gloves here I rolled with Intelligence Vitality and cooldown, which is really critical. Again, I've got a wasted stat on there at the moment, but this is what I've found so far in Season 17. Importantly, I'm wearing this Pestilence 2-piece set because of that 2-set bonus. Each corpse you consume fires a Corpse Lance at a nearby enemy. So that is what is automatically casting my Corpse Lance Brittle Touch for me, which is critical to this build. And that is boosting the critical hit chance against the enemies, which helps the DPS Necromancers do more damage. Okay, Captain Crimson's. You see, I haven't even rolled these. I've been a bit slack putting this build together. Pants, I can't get cooldowns, so I'm really aiming for survivability there. Intelligence, Vitality, and Armor are great. I should probably roll off that regen for a couple of sockets. Okay, my Captain Crimson's Waders, Intelligence, Vitality, Resist All Armor. They're pretty good rolls, so I won't really complain about that. It is actually a little bit helpful, if you can, on some secondaries, is to get some pickup radius. You can see I don't really have much. Pretty early Season 17. I haven't really optimized my gear yet, but that's what I'm wearing there. So the primary reason for wearing Captain Crimson's here is cooldown. You can see there the 2-piece set bonus includes a reduction in cooldown of all skills by 10%. So that's really necessary to get up to the cooldown values I have of 68.8% right now. Okay, supporting legendaries. I do have a lot of supporting legendaries. Starting at the helm, this is completely not rolled for my build, but I do want to be wearing Leoric's Crown. specifically with a cooldown gem in there to increase my cooldown. So what I would like on this, dexterity is fine, but then, you know, some percent life, some vitality, those kind of stats would be good, preferably not critical hit chance and impale damage. So there you go. Aquila Cuirass is pretty important for survivability for me on this build. There are some versions of the build that won't run it if they're wearing, say, a 4-piece bonus, but I am only wearing 2 pieces, so I'm running this Aquila Cuirass. My stats on here aren't too bad. Dexterity, Vitality, Resist All are good stats to have. They're all survivability. Ideally, I would want that orange stat to be down at 90%. Would be better for me, but that's, you know, what I've got and what I'm running with so far. Vigilante Belt, pretty critical for this build because it has cooldown on it. So it's an extra piece where you can get cooldown. This is a pretty well rolled one, really. Intelligence, Vitality, Armor, 8% cooldown, with beautiful secondaries of physical resistance and increased golden health pickup by 2 yards. I don't think I'm going to be changing this belt this season. Okay, strong arms. Now I will note that I'm using both strong arms and nemesis in the cube. So you don't have to wear strong arms if you don't like. If you've got better nemesis, wear the nemesis. Okay, so my strong arm bracers I roll right now with intelligence, vitality, armor, and life per hit. So that's pretty reasonable survivability. You've got some secondary resistance there, which is good. Orange stat, I'd much prefer it to be 30%, but it's on the higher end there at 29%. Okay, so wearing Storm Shield, this is mainly just for survivability. And you want survivability stats on there, plus cooldown. You can get cooldown on your Storm Shield. So you can see I've got cooldown on there, intelligence, vitality, and percent life, which is great. And some secondary stats with arcane resistance and reduced damage from melee attacks there. So all good survivability stats. My weapon, running Ingeon as a weapon, and you do need to actually run this because in the cube it's a two-handed weapon. So importantly, you want cooldown on that, and some intelligence and vitality is useful. It'd be better to have that orange stat up at 10 seconds if possible. Okay, jewelry. Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. You really want one of these with cooldown at 8%. And again, attack speed would be your next one there. So it's 7% on attack speed on this. And then resource cost is the next most important. And then typically you'll roll off the critical hit chance. You don't really need it. Oculus Ring. Again, you want cooldown on this. In my case, it could be higher. So this is where I'm missing a tiny bit of cooldown. And I could have a little more cooldown when I get a better Oculus Ring. So yeah, vitality on that, cooldown's great. Resource costs there is a wasted stat. Other thing with Oculus, you want that orange stat up as high as possible towards 85%. It's just what I found so far this season. Now, amulet. Now you have to wear this amulet for this build because you cannot cube this amulet because it's got a different orange stat for each character. It's not able to be cubed. So stats on this are pretty reasonable. I've got some vitality and resist all there for survivability, and importantly the cooldown. And the orange stat there on mine is maximum at 8 seconds. Okay, I think that's all the gear pieces. So quickly to the cube. So I'm running Spear of Lycander in the cube there, and that's particularly for that killing a demon can have a chance at granting a random shrine effect. The most important shrine effect we could possibly get is the cooldown one. So this will activate Integrator Rift when demons are killed. And if you get cooldown, that just really helps boost it while that's active. So that should be 2 minutes, the shrine effect, I believe, on everyone in the party if it activates. Nemesis braces, as I already said before, you can kind of pick whether you have the Nemesis to spawn the elite wearing or in the cube with the strong arms with that up to 30% buff from knockbacks, the other one. And having the cube as an amulet, the Dovu energy trap. So this increases the duration of stun effects by 25%. And yeah, it just keeps the enemies not moving basically for longer, which helps everybody survive. Okay, so the normal gems I'm running here, cooldown obviously in my helm, already mentioned. Right now I'm running life gems in my chest. If you felt like it, you might want to run armor there instead, but I prefer the vitality right now. And life per hit there in my weapon. legendary gems that I'm running here. Very importantly, Gogok of Swiftness. So this is really important for your cooldown. When you're hitting things and gaining this swiftness stack, it goes up to 15. That really helps get your cooldown for your Land of the Dead to be able to keep that up. One of the things you've got to be careful of this build when you change levels, and you haven't hit anything for a little while, you're losing those Gogok stacks, and you may lose your Land of the Dead for a few seconds, so you just kind of got to hit things as fast as possible to bring those Gogok stacks back up. Okay. Gem of Efficacious Toxin. So this is just a buff to everything that you're hitting. It gives more damage against those enemies. So it's just basically a damage buff for the team. And then I'm personally running here Esoteric Alteration. So this is also related to the fact that I do not have the 4-piece Pestilence bonus on this build. I feel like I need a little more survivability, so I'm running Esoteric there. If you do feel like, you know, you've got sufficient Paragon, for example, right now I'm at Paragon 1246. Got lots of Paragon, you feel, look, I'm surviving fine. I don't need that Esoteric trap. What are you talking about? You can run an Ice Blink here instead, which will give another damage buff to the group. So right now I'm personally running Esoteric, but if you want to swap that out, pick an Ice Blink for that slot. Okay, cool. Paragon. So as a support class, always just remove your area damage. Do everyone a favor. You don't need it. But in this utility tab, you'd probably pick life per hit first, resource cost reduction second, gold find because why not third, and yeah, don't put any points in area damage. Over in defense, it's kind of debatable on this character whether you'd want armor or life first, so pick between armor and life there. Then third, you'd go resist all because you're an intelligence class, so you have more resistance than you do, say, armor initially. And then life regeneration as your last priority on there. Over in offense, cooldown reduction, absolute number 1 there. Attack speed, number 2. 3 and 4, split it how you like between critical hit chance and critical hit damage. They don't really benefit you. Over in core, I'm taking the maximum essence. I'm taking the movement speed. And right now, as a support, I just have the rest of my points in vitality for that little bit more survivability. Overall, I'm running at, right now, without buffs from anybody else, 1.38 million HP. Okay, finally the skill screen. How do you make this all happen? So Bone Spear Crystallization. So that's one of those skills that I'm spamming as I go around the rift. It's costing essence, so it's working with my obsidian ring to improve my cooldown, and it's also increasing my attack speed as well as I'm using it, so that's handy. Devour Cannibalize, so this is how I'm consuming the corpses and getting essence back when I'm doing that, but also getting health back when I'm doing that by using Cannibalize there. Command Skeletons Enforcer, I'm running just as another essence spender. They're going to automatically spawn for me, but I'm just making sure I'm actively spamming this as well, and it's going to help my cooldowns once again. Corpse Lance Brittle Touch, as I mentioned, I don't actually really press this through the rift, it's just there on a bar to be automatically cast by my Pestilence 2-piece, and importantly, Brittle Touch is increasing the critical hit chance against those enemies it hits, which allows our DPS Necromancers to do a little more damage. Blood Rush Potency, this is how I'm moving through most of the rift. I don't run a heck of a lot in this build. I do Blood Rush most of the time, so more of my movement is Blood Rushing. And Potency there is increasing my armor each time I Blood Rush. Land of the Dead, Frozen Lands, critical for the build, keeping everything around you frozen. Yeah, just keep this up as much as you can. You can see there it's got a base cooldown of 120 seconds and it only lasts for 10 seconds. That's why we've got so much cooldown, and then we're spamming the skills to get the cooldown to keep this up and to keep enemies frozen as much as possible. Okay, passives here. Life from Death. This is really important to get you more health globes, so when you Land of the Dead, it's got lots of corpses, you're getting health globes from that, and then other things that die. Health globes are going to feed your DPS Necromancers resource so that they can do damage. Blood is Power is extra cooldown, all handy. Keep in mind when you are using Blood Rush, you are using your life, so that enough of those and Blood is Power will activate and you get extra cooldown. Final Service, Cheat Death. I think Cheat Deaths are always good, so hey, I'm using a Cheat Death. And Rathma's Shield here, there's a little bit of protection every time I hit Land of the Dead, which I'm hitting, as I say, around every 10 seconds or hopefully just under 10 seconds. So that's, you know, 40% of the time, hopefully I have Rathma's shield up, just providing me that little bit more protection. Okay, I think that pretty much summarizes the support Necromancer I'm currently running with the Legacy of Nightmares Mage Necromancer speedruns. Let's say this is pretty reasonable in those speedruns from about 100 to 110, potentially up to 115 later in season. I hope this has helped. If you've got any questions, please drop them in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and GG!